You're listening to This Week in E-Commerce, the Ecom Nation podcast. Dive into the top online retail headlines with your hosts, Paul Waddy and Mal Chia. Let's load up the cart. This Week in E-Commerce, episode 59. I am Mal Chia, and back with me is Paul Waddy. Paul, how are you, mate?
Good, Mal. Good to be back. Some big stories as always today. How are you going?
I'm doing pretty well. I just got back a few days ago, so I've been back in town, back in the country, I should say, for about 72 hours ish or so now, which seems like a lifetime. Not really. I'm still in holiday mode. I just got back from Bali.
Yeah, a bit of a family holiday. How was it? Did you add to the ink?
I did add to the ink, so I now have a calf tattoo.
Ah, okay.
And I'm looking much browner. I was looking at myself before, going, "Man, I'm really tanned."
Well, back to reality.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing like a nice trip in Bali, and then come back to Sydney rain tomorrow. You'll be in Sydney.
I get into Sydney tonight, so I get into Sydney late tonight because I have to be at South by Southwest at the ICC at 8 a.m. tomorrow. So I thought, okay, if I need to be there at 8, I have to do like the last flight. So I get into Sydney at like 10:30 p.m. tonight, and I have to turn it around to be at the ICC at 8 a.m.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully we can turn on some weather for you because it's abysmal at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I was kind of looking forward to some reasonably fine Sydney weather, but from the looks of things, it is raining over there.
Yeah, it ain't happening for you this week, Mel. Sorry.
That's all right. There'll be plenty more other times. And Paul, how are you? How have you been?
Good. Things are good. Busy as always. Ecom 100 keeping me very busy at the moment. And just prepping to go into the big month of Cyber Month. So obviously we are at Ecom Nation gearing up for that, Ecom 100 as well. So it's a very busy time, and I am going away to Hamilton Island next week. So I'm looking forward to a little break before the madness.
Fantastic. And it is, we did a little cyber summit a couple of weeks ago at Ecom 100, which is a lot of fun, getting a few of the brands on there to discuss what their Black Friday plans are, everything from discounting to logistics to marketing strategy. It was a good time.
It was a lot of fun, and I think there's a lot of people nervous about it who had some tough year, and a lot of people who rely on this period. So, wishing all those listening a very very prosperous Cyber Week, although will be a few more episodes before we get to that.
It will be, although we are predicting, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit because we are going to be talking about Klaviyo's recent 2024 consumer spending report. But before we get onto that, we have a couple of other stories. Before we kick into it, just want to make mention of the new Footlocker concept store, which has kicked off. Footlocker for the last couple of quarters have missed their earnings targets and are expecting pretty flat growth. So their share price has taken a bit of a hit, and they're kind of relying on this new AI-driven concept store, which is opening in Melbourne today, I believe, which I'm pretty excited about seeing what that holds, what an AI-driven store, whether it's all just talk or whether it's actually going to deliver something tangibly better for customers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We couldn't really find much about it to talk about today, so I'll probably review it after it opens next week, but it will be interesting. I don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be something to do with, foot measurement, or is it going to be extending that kind of endless aisle so you can buy a lot more product than's held in the store? We don't know, but to loss, so a bit of pressure on Footlocker. And also interesting that in that space, we've just previously spoken about Nike, who's a big supplier of Footlocker, being also having a bit of a hard run lately. So yeah, here's hoping these new AI-focused stores can turn it around, but maybe next week we'll have an update.
Sounds good. But before then, we are going to be talking about fast fashion, which is a topic which we talk about quite often here on This Week in E-Commerce. In that fast fashion, generally we don't love it, but it seems that they're trying to be doing some interesting things. So in particular, we can see that in Europe, some of the largest fast fashion companies from Zara, H&M, Decathlon, IKEA and Primark are amongst 10 brands who are going to be launching a trial to separate textiles and shoes from other waste. So really being proactive proactive with that reused and recycling of, let's just say, poorer quality garments. This seems like they're trying to do an end run around the EU regulations. So the Shein tax, I think we called it a little while ago, which was that France are going to be introducing an additional tax essentially for those companies who are bringing in those goods into the country, which don't meet certain standards. So it looks like they're trying to be proactive about it by introducing a level of recyclability and dare I say circularity to it. So, Paul, do you think this has any teeth, and this is actually going to? What do you think they're trying to do with this? Are they generally being good citizens, or as I suspect, are they trying to just do an end run around the regulations?
Oh no, that I would. Well, hard to say. I think you would have to say that the regulations are being brought in and they've acted. So you would say that they're in response to the regulations. It's going to be really interesting to know, to practically see how this happens. I think it's not easy. Yeah, it says in Spain, 12% of used clothes are collected separately, and 88% end up in landfill. I'm a little, yeah. Each resident in Spain discards 20 kilos of clothes per year. That's insane. So I'm interested to know how they'll do this, Mal. It says plans to set up containers in churches, stores, shopping centres. Yeah, fine. I don't know how that's really any different to what we sort of have in Australia of the bins that for charity and so on. It still ultimately requires the consumer to return the items, and that's the thing. I think the stores can go about setting up these collection points, and that's a good step. But it still requires these, particularly in Spain, these people to stop dumping their 20 kilos of clothes because it's convenient, and actually get them to get off their bums and go and visit these collection points where the stores will then sort them. Really interesting. I think it's a great first step. In practice, I think it's going to be really hard, but it will be interesting to see, particularly in Europe and particularly in Spain, which is well above the average, if it can reduce that huge amount of waste. So I guess good on them. I guess they're being forced to. Yeah, interesting that I guess Tian and Shimu and these guys will have no hope of being able to comply with that, which is kind of the point, I guess. So it's a tariff of sorts, I guess, on those guys, as well as being something nice for the economy. But logistically, this will be really interesting. So look, these guys can afford to do something, and so they should. So let's see how it goes.
Look, I think it's all jazz hands, to be honest. I think this is just like all smoke and mirrors to deflect on the fact that the biggest problem is consumer demand. That you're not really addressing things at the source. You're kind of addressing things right at the end to say, oh, look at this, we're going to recycle and return things back to nature. Whereas the biggest problem is that we just have too much demand for these really lower price items, and unless we change that either through tariffs or taxes, it's not going to really change too much. People are still going to be consuming a lot of those products, which are going to be produced at a very low cost, which is ultimately ripping someone off, whether it be the manufacturers or nature or the consumer. Yeah, look, I look at this and think, okay, well, it's nice. In Australia, we've kind of got this other problem as well, where brands are going to be starting to do this, and we have this imperative to become a circular economy by 2030, which is what the government has come out and said, which is fantastic. But right now, only 3.7% of the economy is considered circular, so we've got a long way to go. And I think a step like recycling almost just kicks the can down the road to say, hey, look at this, we're going to recycle these used garments, but we're not. I don't think it's actually going to make a real tangible impact towards actually achieving that majority circular economy number, which Australia wants to hit, and which I dare say the EU probably wants to hit as well.
Yeah, you're right. It's kicking the can down the road and putting it on the consumer. The consumer ultimately will have to do something with it. And you're right. They'll still keep making the same margins. They haven't really addressed the supply chain, which I guess is really hard. It's nice to tackle the end part, but it's really the production that's the issue with issues stemming from child labor to unethical practices in manufacturing plants. I know there's been steps to address all of that, but at the end of the day, these guys will still keep buying from those factories, make a huge margin, and then rely on the consumer to develop a conscience. So look, it's I think logistically it's probably going to almost do nothing, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on. We are going to be talking about one of the stalwarts of the Australian retail scene. Dean Salakas recently announced on LinkedIn that he is putting the party people up for sale. Now, Dean, very, very well known personality in our industry. He's won a number of awards, yeah, and just generally a great guy, the chief party dude. So it was a real surprise to see them put the party people up for sale. So right now they are looking for a substantial investment to take it to the next level, according to his LinkedIn post. That despite the substantial growth it's taken, they feel that they need additional investment either through a new owner or a strategic investor to come on board to help take them to that new level. Paul, what do you make of this?
Love Dean, local boy near me. Yeah, I think he's a stalwart of the industry. I really liked his frankness in his LinkedIn post, but also the interview with Inside Retail. I think I'll just read it out. But he just said he acknowledged it'll be difficult to find an investor in the current environment, so he's open to selling it. But his quote was, "Failing that, we'll take a sale and go do something else. Because if we're not going to grow this massively through investment, we're not motivated to stay on with the business as a small to medium business. We want to do big things." I just think that's awesome. Like really frank, no smoke and mirrors. I just like that. He's a really direct guy, and I wish him all the best. Over a million parties they've thrown, been around since 2003. Recently did the world's first augmented reality. Just an innovator, an old school, multi-channel retailer, family-owned business. There's so much to like about the business and these guys and Dean in particular. So I'm hoping that that someone comes along and partners with Dean and family, because I just think they deserve that. And failing that, I hope that they do cash in and go and do something special, because there's obviously entrepreneurial blood in their veins. And if they do move on to something else, I look forward to seeing what it is.
I think Dean, especially, he is a real innovator in the space. The augmented mirror, which he's been doing for the last year or so, last Halloween, I believe he launched it at roughly this time, was a really novel application. It won a lot of kudos for that augmented mirror. I never got a chance to use it. Actually, no, I did use it at Online Retailer, I believe. We tested it out, which was a lot of fun.
Yep.
So it was a cool innovation. And I think I have no doubt that no matter what happens next, Dean will continue to do really creative, innovative things. But as a business, though, I think the party people, like a lot of businesses in this field, are really getting smashed by Temu right now. Yeah, when they look at what they offer, it's generally very commoditized. You don't necessarily want the highest quality party plates out there. You're just looking for the cheapest Paw Patrol plates or frozen balloons which you can find. And unfortunately, you can find them cheaper on Temu and other websites than you can on finding it from your local store, like the party people. So I really feel for businesses which have been smashed like this, and I really do hope that they do find a buyer, because I think there is an opportunity for these businesses if, like Appliances Online, they find their niche. But until they do, I think it's going to be a hard sell.
It is. I think he acknowledges that. And yep, we wish them the very best, Dean and family, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it and report back on what happens there.
All right, we're going to move into our last story for the day, which is Klaviyo have released their 2024 consumer spending report. So this is a study of 8,500 consumers around Australia, as well as some comments from local experts. I saw the Paul that they left us off this time, so I'm going to have to speak to Loz about this. But they did speak to 8,500 consumers worldwide to talk about how they were feeling going into this next retail period. So a lot of really interesting insights to show that obviously that people are feeling cautious at the moment due to inflation. 88% of consumers replied that inflation was the primary impact on their spending decisions. However, 80% of people were still planning to maintain or perhaps slightly increase the holiday spending. So that number's a little bit skewed. 60% said they were going to maintain how much they were going to spend over Black Friday, and 20% said that they were going to increase. And obviously the other 20% said they were going to decrease. So roughly looking like similar numbers, it looks like we're going to be spending. But the interesting one to me is that people are looking to spend earlier than before. It's interesting, but also not so interesting because we have been talking about this for some time, that people are looking to spend earlier and earlier and earlier. So it's looking that people are looking to spend their Black Friday either even before November, it's showing, or possibly in early November.
Hmm. Yeah, and so this is a consumer report, and it sort of validates, I think, what we've been saying for a couple of years now, which is that consumers know what's coming. They're not they're not silly, and there's a bit of a slowdown at the moment as people wait for that. You're right in saying so savvy are the consumers that they're expecting a lot of them to shop a month before November. That's now. And on the next sentence, it says that they're looking price is the primary deciding factor, followed by quality. So, okay, do the maths. They know brands will go early, and they're waiting and ready for it. So I think that that's just the landscape now, Mal. I think it's consumers know we've kind of built a rod for our own backs here by pushing it out and out and out and out, and it becoming a month. Look, it's certainly not helped by the fact that the outlook is cautious, to say the least. And yeah, people are going to spend the same. That's good news. I guess that is good news. But they are going to hunt for discounts. As we've said before, I worry for kind of December and January. I think November will be strong, but the overwhelming 48% said that inflation is affecting spending decisions right now. So I think that we can put that to bed, right? We know that inflation is curbing spending. It doesn't matter what people say. It just is. And the Klaviyo report identifies that. And that just means that we've got to, as retailers, work even harder. We can't just go on sale. We've got to work even harder to get the consumer to part with their dollars, particularly in the discretionary spending amount, which is really copped it. But anyway, it's interesting. Not all doom and gloom, Mal, but it's just confirms what we've talked about, that it's pretty tough out there at the moment.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that a lot of people here would be seeing lower conversion rates than what they expected, and I dare say year on year conversion rates are probably lower. But the opportunity here is now to really be focusing on how do you really build the perceived value in your product. How do you focus on creating the perception of value, so that people aren't just looking at it purely at a price level. They're looking at it that they're going to be getting a great deal because they're seeing that your product is better than your closest competitor's product. And so ideally, you're not in a comparison decision. You're in a choice decision of like people are choosing to buy your product and only your product over this period. So really, I think for a lot of brands, you should be focusing right now on reaching out and nurturing your upper funnel customers. So people who haven't bought from you recently, people who are perhaps visiting your website, kicking the tires, exploring, getting ready for Black Friday, and telling them exactly why they should be buying from you, why your product is superior to your competitors' products, so that people are ready for when you do go on sale. So I think when you do go on sale, they're going to be looking at everyone else. So you have to make sure that they're choosing you, that you are top of mind once the sale happens. Because like you said, they're not spending more money on their discretionary products. They're spending the same on discretionary, if not probably a little bit less. So it's really focusing on buying showing people why they should be buying you over your competitors.
Yeah, that's a fair call. I think looking at the graph here, the majority are going to just spend the same as last year, which is encouraging. When I say the majority, 31% are going to spend the same in apparel, for example, which is probably what a lot of people listening are in. 28% will spend more, which is great. 17% less. So that's what I mean by the majority. So on paper, that's pretty good news. What you need to factor in as a retailer is the increased competition for that dollar. And I don't want to keep banging on about it, but there are a lot of international players in Australia now, from Amazon to, Temu to AliExpress to Shein. So while spending remains the same, there are a lot more competitors, largely your Temus and your Sheins, who have yanked a lot of money out of that space. So it is going to be harder, particularly when a lot of those competitors undercut us by price, which, as you just said, you can't compete on that. So you've got to find other ways to compete. A little bit hard to do that a month out. Hopefully brands have been, listening to us and doing that over the last 12 months. But I'm not sure I agree with everything in the article, like sharpen your discount strategy. What does that mean? Like, that means discount harder. Okay, you can be clever with it. I think the work's got to have been done. It's October now, Mal. I think the work's got to have been done a long time ago to
Yep.
really prosper in this period. It's not just about getting your discounting right. I think it goes beyond that and getting your strategy right. But look, nonetheless, Cyber Week's upon us, and we know what's going to happen. So again, I hope people are going to have a big one.
And look, I think the other insight as well is that people are looking to be doing a lot of gifting as well. So buying a lot of the gifting for Christmas in November or even right now. So I think really thinking about that now and how do you potentially leverage that in your communications to make sure that you're targeting that potential gift buying customer as well. One of the insights which I found really interesting was around BNPL, that they expect BNPL to actually play a role. So buy now, pay later to actually become more popular over this period, particularly with discretionary items. So we'll see. I think BNPL. I was actually surprised the other day when one of my brands I work with actually saw that their afterpay percentage had actually been increasing throughout the year, and afterpay hadn't been making a whole lot of noise. So that kind of actually surprised me. But then again, it probably shouldn't have surprised me that people are looking to be using BNPL, particularly with the cost of living pressures. That when it comes to discretionary products, they're more likely to use that now.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. I feel the same way as you. It's just been a little bit, feels like it's just been coming down a little bit, but yeah, it makes sense. Afterpay and so on is still a good option for customers. So yeah, that is interesting. That people shouldn't forget about that. I think the other thing that's interesting for me is that all age groups in this report, so Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, Boomer, all income groups are all going to spend more in October and November than December. So it's upon us, and we know that already that November is bigger than December, but it just well and truly cements the fact that October-November period obliterates December, especially in e-commerce where you've got Australia Post cut-off times and DHL cut-off times. But we're in peak now, it seems, in the middle of October, going into November, we're in peak. And if people didn't know that, well, this report confirms it.
Yeah, look, I think I mentioned to someone the other day that they should be looking at December as their insurance rather than actually banking on it. It's like if things don't go well this period, then use December for that. But you don't expect miracles in December. And it's remarkable. It's remarkable how quickly that has changed as well.
Good call. Yep. Keep it up your sleeve, but don't expect it to do all your heavy lifting.
All right, that's all we got time for this week. Paul, thank you for joining us. Have a great week. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, actually.
See you in 24 hours or so.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope your peak planning is going well, and we'll see you back here next week.
Bye, guys.